seeing or listening to this podcast, this Fireside chat, after Election Day 2024. I am recording it the day before Election Day 2024. So I cannot comment on the results. Nevertheless, what I have to say is still timely. Believe it or not, given that I am opening up with some thoughts on a squirrel. Many of you know what I'm referring to, and I presume many of you do not. But apparently last week, and believe me, I promised to tie it in to the elections. Last week, if I have the facts correctly, if I have the facts correct, I think that's the more accurate, even though correctly would modify the word have. Okay, grammar, I'm sort of type A on grammar. So this couple, this I believe husband and wife, maybe they're partners, I don't know, but this man and woman have been running a shelter for animals that have been abandoned in the wild in some cases. And in one case, they took in about, 7 years ago, whatever, a long time ago, 6 years ago, they took in a squirrel whose mother had died. I don't remember how they know that she died, but he was helpless. And they took him in, and they have been nurturing him for 6 years or so. And his name is Peanut. And he was bonded to them, and they were bonded to him. Somebody called some government agency to report that this couple had a wild animal. You're not allowed in, I don't know if every state, but you're not allowed in New York State to keep a wild animal. Now, mind you, had they not taken in the wild animal, he would have gotten killed. He was not in good shape. So they took in a squirrel, which is technically a wild animal, but it's certainly not an endangered species. Some people would like them to be an endangered species because they can be a nuisance. Be that as it may, they took him in and nurtured him for all these years. And then somebody reported this couple has a wild animal. Now, by the way, I understand that you can't have a wild animal for health reasons, if they carry a disease, for example, or I don't know what else. I don't know what other reason. I'm sure there are other reasons. Maybe they just don't want people taking animals anywhere they find them. It's perfectly legit. Be that as it may, they took them in. A common sense, which does not exist in bureaucracies, I mean that literally, I'll be back to that, would suggest that if somebody could make the decision and they found out the facts, the squirrel has been with them for 6 years, the mother had died, the animal was in bad shape when they took him in, if they let him out, he would die. If common sense prevailed, nothing would have happened. At worst, just pro forma, maybe they would have been fined some minimal sum for having a squirrel in their house, which, as we all know, is a very serious matter in New York State. Anyway, they sent a whole squad, I don't know, of cops, of agents, I don't know. But the very fact that they sent a squad who then ransacked the house, I don't know what they were looking for, other wild animals, I don't know. They were not even allowed to use the bathroom, the couple, and if they did, the bathroom would be checked after they left, which is humiliating, to say the least, especially for the woman, who said that she contained herself for 6 hours. The very fact that they were there 6 hours is beyond belief. I am not the only one to point out, and this bears directly on the election, that This is a great example of overreach and government, of government being so big, it sort of needs things to do. It, it, it's, a, it's filled with bureaucrats. And as I said on my radio show, I am scared of anonymous bureaucrats. Millions upon millions of people work for governments, whether it is state, federal, or local. And it is way, way too many, and they need something to do. Ask anyone who owns a restaurant in Los Angeles, where I live, or in New York, or any big city, how difficult it is when inspectors come. Now, the idea that people inspect for basic health rules so that the food that is prepared for the public is healthy, I totally get it. I totally get all of these things, but we have come to the point where people utilize the government to intimidate the public. And I can't think of a more dramatic example than sending people. I don't know if they came with guns. I don't know. But whether they did or not, it's very intimidating when officers come to your house in large numbers and they ransack the place. Imagine it happening to you and your home. And it was over a pet squirrel. This is why the elections, this is a big reason, not the only, the elections are so important. Because for one party, bigger and bigger government is a good thing. And for one party, smaller and smaller government is a good thing. Ronald Reagan said when he was running for president, he's noted for this among many other lines, government is not the solution, it's the problem. And while obviously there are occasions where it is a solution, you can't fight a war without a government. You can't fight crime in cities without a government. You generally want certain services to be public services, but beyond that, the bigger the government, the more the corruption, because people are given power. For those of us, I am one of them, who doesn't yearn for power over any other human being. It is not part of my disposition. We don't understand why many people want power. I think they want it as much as food. It gives their life meaning to have power over others. This is called the progressive mind. I want to have power over as many of my fellow citizens as possible. I want the state to be extremely powerful. But given that the state, and I have talked about this, so I won't belabor the point now, but all the genocides of the 20th century, basically communism and Nazism, and overwhelmingly communism, the Nazis didn't have enough time to reach the numbers the communists did, but they were obviously as evil. These were all done by big governments, with the one exception of the horror that happened in Central Africa in a country called Rwanda. It was all government. And are you happy with the way the government runs our public schools? Are you happy with teachers' unions? Are you happy with the dropping of standards that is becoming an epidemic, at least in the United States of America? So people coming to your door and ransacking your home because you have a squirrel that is a wild animal by definition, but is a domesticated pet for these people who saved its life. This is why the election, among the many reasons why it is so important. I do fear my own government. That is correct. I fear any government because I fear people having power. This is where the wisdom begins, the famous biblical line, wisdom begins with fear of the Lord, which is true. No God, no wisdom. But there's another factor that you should fear a big government because of what it can do and what it does. Wisdom begins with the understanding that people are not basically good, along with the fear of God line. Wisdom begins with understanding people are not basically good. Why would you want to give almost unlimited power to a creature that is not basically good? I'm not saying people are basically bad. I always make this clear, but we're not basically good. We have to fight to be good. Why would you entrust almost unlimited power to a flawed creature, most of whom have that power because they want the power, not because they want to do good? They may rationalize we're doing good, but they want the power. And then they come and ransack your house because you have a squirrel. It was a painful subject because it raises a painful subject. In California, your child gets a free lunch and a free breakfast at school. When I was a kid, you know who gave kids breakfast and lunch? Guess. Parents. Is that quaint? Those horrible days of the past when parents were expected to feed their children. Not anymore. The state will feed your children. What does that do to parental authority? When a child knows that the government, the state, has fed me breakfast, the government, the state, has fed me lunch, how could it not reduce the authority of the parent, the prestige of the parent in the child's eyes? You think you're in California and other states, you think that when your 9-year-old daughter says she's a boy and you say, honey, you're not a boy, you're a girl. God or nature made you a girl. You can't become a boy. There's no such thing. You can think you're a boy, but you can think a lot of things, but you're not. If you say that to your child, you might lose custody of that child. Certainly if you're a divorced parent. If one parent in California in a divorce says, oh, I support my child, my 9-year-old, saying she's a boy, I support her transitioning, I want to give her hormone blockers, even though it will probably render her incapable of ever getting pregnant. And the other parent says, no, I want to lovingly tell my daughter she's a boy, she's a girl. She can't become a boy. He will lose custody. He could be the most wonderful parent in the world. This is what people with power do. They remove the power from competing institutions. The two biggest competing institutions are religion and parents. And that's exactly what government in the West has been suppressing. Religion and parents. That's a big factor. And you know, the sad thing, it just makes sense. Why does the left win elections more often than the right around the world? Because the left says, vote for us, then we'll give you things when we're in power. The right says, look at Argentina at this time, where you have a libertarian president, Milei. He doesn't promise Argentinians anything except a healthier society, which is what he's giving them. But he doesn't promise them any goodies, benefits as they're called. And as I've often noted, I think it's harder to wean yourself off benefits than to wean yourself off alcohol. It's the hardest addiction to break, addiction to free things. All righty, see what you folks have to say. Take it away.
Hi, Mr. Prager. My name is Christy. I'm from Huntington Beach, California. And I was wondering, what do you think our best response should be to injustices in the world? We know what wrong responses are, but what do you think the best response for us to do is? Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you that is obviously a question I could spend hours on. In fact, I've spent my life on. I'm trying to get this right. But you know what? Something came up. 1 minute, 1 minute. Duh. I got it. Took a few years. Our best response to injustice is justice. Our best response is to fight. Our best response is to hate evil. My favorite verse in the entire Bible is those of you who, I'm translating from the Hebrew because that's how I know it. Oh, man, those of you who love God must hate evil. It's a commandment. The Hebrew has a command form of the verb. English does not. So we add must or have to. Yep. If you don't hate evil, you don't love God. You have to fight. You have to teach your kids to love goodness more than good grades, good deeds, more than self-esteem, self-control. I mean, it's a whole body of thought on the most difficult question there is: how do you make good people? That's the most important question and the most difficult question. So that's where you begin. And then you will have a more just world. But it's one by one by one. I'll tell you this, it doesn't help if government is too big, because then they pursue social justice and not justice, which is another subject unto itself. The Prager United question, that's the first question that I go to after the video question. These are people who are members of Prager United. Go to PragerUnited.com and see what you get for a minimal support of the work that we do at PragerU, like the Fireside Chat. PragerUnited.com. This is Margaret 32, Margaret P. from Fort Mill, South Carolina, USA. It's a long question, and I was going to cut it, but it's all relevant, so here goes. Hi, Dennis. I'm a mother of 3 young children, all under 5, and have been happily married for almost 10 years. I want to say thank you for all that you do at PragerU. I deeply appreciate the Fireside Chats and listen regularly while training for marathons and on my ride into work. I accompany her on her marathon training. That's sweet. That's as close as I will ever get to running a marathon. We've completed a handful of craftery projects. Is that how it's pronounced? Craftery. With Jill Simone, and she's terrific. And we love a good Otto's Tales. Your wisdom impacts me every time I listen, and I am a better parent for it. I have a longtime college friend who is now a teacher in a blue state. So blue means left rather than right, or Democrat rather than Republican. I have found myself, particularly in the last 2 years, often avoiding political conversations and anything related to COVID when we regularly catch up. I recently spoke out to her regarding my thoughts on public schools and how our family was likely going to send our children to a private Christian school because of the content and indoctrination that is happening even in the conservative place we live. The conversation ultimately had her in tears, as I think she realized our value differences have grown deeper. Is it possible to be friends with this person, even though our political beliefs and values have grown deeper over time? It's hard, not because I don't have an answer, but because it's hard for me to share the answer. I regularly meet people who tell me they are very close friends with opposite political views. I'm happy for them that has worked out. I would find it hard personally to be very close with a person who had the opposite views that I have. First of all, it's not right to say political. More accurate is moral and social, moral and cultural, moral and societal. That's much bigger than politics. I don't care about your politics. I care about your values. I look at it this way. Why would I want to have friends with whom I can't share my deepest convictions? That's really what you're saying. Can we still be friends even though we don't share my deepest convictions? If you can, more power to you. I can't. I admit it. When I'm with friends, I don't want to have to worry about what I'm saying. That's the purpose of friends. So good luck. Marjorie, Mineola, Florida. Hi, Dennis. I anxiously await your newest book, Numbers. It's coming out now. I actually have a copy. I should show it on the screen. Too bad. Next week, try to remember. I'd like to show it. The next volume of my commentary on the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, the Rational Bible. That's really life-changing. I am now reading Think a Second Time. That was a book I wrote, published in 1998. It's 44 essays on 44 subjects. And I'm struck by how closely this nearly 30-year-old book resembles current events. Like fashion, history does seem to cycle back around. It's uncanny. Does this comfort you or terrify you? Well, neither, but much closer to terrify. I knew when I wrote it that the subjects would be eternal. It never occurred to me that, what did you say, 30 years? Yeah. So, well, to be technical, 25 years ago. It never occurred to me 25 years ago, that in 25 years, this book will be irrelevant. I knew it. And by the way, I write for permanence. I write so that people will read what I wrote after I leave this world, let alone while I'm still in it, and it's just 25 years. I mean, one of the chapters is why the belief that people are basically good is dangerous. That'll be relevant 100 years from now. So I'm not comforted, because it's unfortunate that it will still be an issue. It may be good for book sales, but it's bad for the world. Okay, let's see. Jessica, 42, Bessemer, Alabama. Hi, Dennis. I have found a new passion for classical music. Great. And I love your insights on classical music. I am a homeschool mom of 2 boys and want to include composer study in our home. Which composers do you feel I should begin sharing with my boys? They are 5 and 18. I value your answer. Thank you. So there's no great answer to that. You try a bunch of things and see what they respond to. There's no way to predict. This one will love Vivaldi and the Italian Baroque. This one will love Handel, and this one will love Haydn, and this one will love Beethoven, and this one will love Tchaikovsky. This one will love Chopin. It doesn't matter. Just expose your child. And here's my recommendation. Anything you play for your child, play at least 3 times. Classical music is not like pop music in that you love it the first time you hear it. It takes a little work. And then, I mean, the rewards are awesome, but it's not a matter of, oh, he didn't like it because he didn't like it the first time he heard it. So I would just take the greatest composers from different eras and see how they react. If I blindly were to recommend pieces, it would be the 4 Seasons by Vivaldi and Beethoven's 5th Symphony. It's hard to imagine somebody not responding to either of those. Or maybe the William Tell Overture by Rossini, Da-dum, 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 dum, dum, da-dum, 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 dum, dum, da-dum, da-dum. Da-dum, dum, dum, da-dum, da-dum, bum, bum. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody is, right?
Mhm.
That was the Lone Ranger theme, that famous American cowboy TV show. It's the second half of the William Tell Overture. The beginning is beautiful, but it's slow.
Let's want to do the last 5 minutes on YouTube comments?
Oh, YouTube comments. Good idea. So these are YouTube comments. If you're watching the Fireside Chat on YouTube, please be sure to leave a comment, and I will try to respond. So we begin with an insult. Who is this from? Tall Spicy. Okay. Very occasionally you don't embarrass yourself. So let me just say a word about the insult. A, I'm not crushed, just for the record. Nobody has to worry. But more important, it's so interesting. What joy did Tall Spicy, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, have? It sounds like a man. But I don't know. What joy did, let's say it's a he, did he have in writing an insult? Obviously, he doesn't like me. There are a lot of people who don't. But it doesn't set you up in a good light. It's not I who look foolish with that opening sentence. It's if anybody does, it's you. I would never do that. There are people I differ with on everything. I mean, I would differ if they said that water were made of H2O, I would check it out again. But I would never open up with an insult. Hey, dummy. So just as a word of advice, and everybody should have this, think before you send. And
also, we should say, thank you for watching.
We should say to him, thank you for watching. Yes, exactly.
He's calling you a dummy.
No, it is odd. I always find that odd. Very occasionally, you don't embarrass yourself. So in other words, I embarrass myself all the time. Okay. Then why do you watch? Why do you listen? I don't have an answer to that. But it's an interesting thesis that I embarrass myself nearly all the time. I have a 43-year career in radio. Clearly, people differ with me. But if I embarrassed myself regularly, I don't think I'd have had a 43-year career. Be that as it may. I am a liberal. Shocking. That. I'm stunned. And while understanding why, by the way, not all liberals would write that, but I'm not surprised he's not a conservative. Why there are personal and systemic disadvantages for many. The answer is to create equal opportunities. That's where it is important. PragerU will tell you that everyone is the same and they have the same opportunities, which is bunk. And some on the left would say lower standards. Neither is right. The right needs to be honest that there is not equality of opportunity, and the left should not reduce standards. So what's your solution? If they're both wrong, or they're both right but have opposite views, what's your view? What should we do? Should we lower standards or not? You don't seem to have come to a resolution. So therefore, it doesn't matter what you think because you don't have a policy recommendation. But okay. So let's talk about what PragerU and Prager think. It's bunk that everyone is the same and has the same opportunities. If anyone has ever heard me say, or anyone at PragerU, everyone is the same, then I am unaware of what any of us are saying. It is inconceivable. No one thinks everyone is the same. Next, that we all have the same opportunities. Nobody has said that. Even if everyone were in the same exact socioeconomic state, we wouldn't have the same opportunities. I've had more opportunities because I've been healthy, because I was given a good brain, because I was given a stable upbringing. I was given religion. I was given wisdom. So the issue was to give everybody those things. Now, you can't give everybody a good brain. Well, but everybody has a good brain. Some people have a better brain than others. That's just the way it is. You know, I actually thought about majoring in music because my love of music is so deep. I thought about it in college. And then I realized I don't have the talent, because it would have been, you have to play an instrument. I played piano, but I knew I would never have the talent to go far as a pianist. And so I didn't major in music. I have it as a great passion, but I didn't have it. I didn't want to make it a living. I wasn't good enough. So I didn't have an equal opportunity in music because I wasn't given the ability that a great pianist has. Likewise, I did not start at an early enough age. I started playing an instrument when I was in 7th grade. To be really terrific, you've got to start when you're 4. There's no such thing as equal opportunity. You try for it, but it's not possible. There are so many variables. What if you want to work in the hotel industry, but you're in a chronically bad mood? Do you have the same opportunity to advance because of crappy social skills that may not even be your fault? Because you're just born as a moody person? So we believe in equality before the law, and that to a certain extent does exist. Not a complete extent, I acknowledge that. But lowering standards, that's the worst thing you could do. And you may even agree with that. What's our timing? We're good? Another one from YouTube. Let's see. My senior thesis, this is from Amy Canfield, 6113. My senior thesis in college was on the fairness of modifications and accommodations for students with special needs. I talked about that, right? People taking the exam and having extra time, how unfair that is. So interesting to hear Dennis speak to this. Let's see, here's one. What a noble man you are, Dennis. So you should meet the guy who thinks I embarrass myself all the time and have a debate. I think he's noble. I think he's an embarrassment. Can it be both? A noble man who constantly embarrasses himself? It's theoretically possible, I guess. A big Brazilian fan here. I have a lot of fans in Brazil. I got to get there and speak. Who rides her bike every week listening to your fireside chat. You know how much that means to me? I'm imagining you riding your bike in Brazil every week, listening to the fireside chat. That's awesome.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, I'll end with this one. What do you make of passages like Leviticus 11:45? Therefore be holy, for I am holy. Isn't that telling his people to live to a high standard? Yes, but the problem a lot of religious people make is the belief that God expects us to be God-like in terms of moral perfection. God does not expect us to be perfect. He does not demand, forget expect. He does not demand that we be perfect. It is not, we are not capable of that. I am holy, And I'd like you to try to imitate me in whatever way you can. That's perfectly legit. But you'll never become as holy as me. It's not possible. It shouldn't be in your mind. God does not expect us or demand from us what is not possible. But what is he supposed to say? I am holy and I don't care if you're holy? What is the alternative? And by the way, I have a lot to say about holy, because in our secular society, people don't talk about it, think about it, or do anything about it. The holy protects the ethical. Could you put that down? I don't think I've done an opening monologue on that subject. When people began to curse publicly, I knew we were in trouble, and I was right. I'll explain on another Fireside Chat. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. The Fireside Chat is made possible solely thanks to Prager United members. Please consider joining Prager United